AITA for making my parents regret that they only paid for my sister's college? My name is Gavin. I'm 26, and I'm the oldest son in a very normal, working-class family. A modest house in the suburbs, a 30-year mortgage that never seems to shrink, and Sundays with pancakes and football on the TV in the background. My father is Robert, a self-employed electrician, always tired and always with the phrase, "life is tough," on his lips. My mother is Diana, a dedicated homemaker. She claimed it was by choice, but the truth was she felt she'd missed out on a career. And then there's my younger sister, Elena, 2 years my junior, the apple of everyone's eye. For as long as I can remember, the roles were crystal clear. Elena was the smart one, the one with a future, the one who couldn't waste time. I was the other one, the helper, the one who adapts, the one who doesn't cause trouble. I remember the exact day the tone of everything shifted. I can even recall the smell of leftover casserole. It was my senior year of high school. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and my mother shouted from the kitchen, "Gavin, come down for a moment. We need to talk to you." That "we need to talk" never brings anything good. I wiped my hands on my jeans. I had just gotten home from my part-time job at the grocery store and went down to the living room. My father was sitting on the sofa with the remote in his hand, but the TV was off. My mother stood with her arms crossed. Elena was at the table with her perfectly organized notes, pretending to read, but listening to everything. "Sit down," my father said without looking at me. I sat in the armchair across from them. I felt that thick silence that forms when everyone knows something except you. "We've been running the numbers," my mother began, "and we've decided what we're going to do about college." I already knew where this was going. They had been talking about tuition, scholarships, and student loans for months. I had gotten good grades and a decent score on my SATs. I wasn't a genius, but I wasn't a disaster either. I wanted to study computer science or engineering at the state university. Elena wanted to go to an expensive private university because the dual degree program is better. "Okay," I said, feeling my mouth go dry. My father sighed as if what he was about to say pained him greatly, but you could tell they had made up their minds a long time ago. "Gavin, things are really tight. The mortgage, the utilities, everything has gone up. We can't afford tuition for 2 universities." I nodded awkwardly. "I can work more hours," I replied quickly. "I can apply for more scholarships, maybe get a loan." My mother shook her head with that sad smile she used before delivering a gut punch. "Honey, you don't understand. It's not just the money, it's the investment." She glanced at Elena, then back at me. "Your sister has potential," she said slowly, as if reciting something very important. "Real potential. Her teachers say it, the guidance counselor says it. She can go very far." I felt a strange pang in my chest, but I waited for the second part, the part about me. It didn't take long. "You don't," my father finished bluntly. "You're a hard worker, yes, but not everyone is cut out for a 4-year degree, son. You can keep working at the grocery store. Learn a trade, something secure." The phrase hung in the air. "She has potential. You don't." Elena looked up for a second. She gave me a look that was a mix of pity and guilt, but she said nothing. Not an "it's not fair." Not a "we can find another solution." Nothing. I swallowed hard. "So, you're not going to help pay for my tuition?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. My mother put on a look of sacrifice. "We can't handle everything. Understand that we have to bet where there's a better chance. It's what's best for the family." For the family. Always the family. Never me. In that moment, all I felt was anger, shame, and a kind of absurd emptiness. I didn't even have time to get properly mad. I just nodded like a fool. "Okay." I didn't argue. I didn't cry in front of them. I got up, went to my room, and just lay there staring at the ceiling, listening from a distance as my mother told my father in a low voice, "Robert, don't overthink it. It's the logical thing to do." And I thought that was the most humiliating day of my life. What I didn't know was that 4 years later, in another room full of people, my mother would grab my father's arm tightly and whisper, "Robert, what have we done?" And that time, I would truly make them listen. After that afternoon, everything settled into place as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Elena started touring the private university. My mother spoke of the beautiful campus like she was in a commercial, and my father repeated to anyone who would listen, "The girl is going to come out of there an executive. You'll see." And me? I kept going to high school, to the grocery store, and home. That was my path. The funny thing is, I got accepted into the computer engineering program at the state university. When I mentioned it at dinner, my mother smiled politely, the way you do when a neighbor tells you their son passed his driving test. That's great, son, she said. But you know we can't help you right now. I can work and study, I answered. There are afternoon and evening classes. I can keep working at the store in the mornings. My father shrugged. As long as you don't neglect your duties at home. Spoiler alert. My duties at home were paying for things. The first year was hell. In the mornings, I stocked shelves, carried boxes, and listened to customers complain because their favorite brand of cereal was out of stock. In the afternoons, I'd go to class half asleep. I was late for labs. I stayed at the library until it closed, trying to understand calculus with my head about to explode. Meanwhile, Elena's life was a different movie. Mom, this semester I have to buy a textbook that costs $120, she'd say in the kitchen. No problem, honey, it's for your future, my mother would reply without blinking. I'd overhear this while calculating if I had enough for my monthly bus pass. One day, midway through the semester, my father called me into the living room. Gavin, he said, we need to talk about money again. The utility bills have gone way up, and so has the car insurance. You're an adult now. Could you contribute something to the house? I blinked. Dad, I pay for my tuition, my books, my transportation. I make minimum wage at the store. Watch your tone, my mother intervened. And don't be selfish. We all have to chip in. Your sister makes sacrifices too. I looked at Elena. She was holding a new iPhone. What sacrifices? I asked. My mother took offense. You can't compare. Elena is studying something serious at a prestigious university. She doesn't have time to work. It's an investment. That word again, investment. From then on, every time I said, I can't, I was met with the same shower of comments. You've always been a conformist, Gavin. Your sister is studying her butt off, and you only think about your own comfort. If you don't want to help, just say so, but don't come crying to us later. In the end, I started giving them money. First $100 a month, then $150, then some extra when the car needed repairs or a big bill was due. I told myself it was temporary, that once I finished my degree, everything would get better. Meanwhile, not only did Elena not work, but my parents gave her an allowance because she can't always wear the same clothes. They paid for her dorm, her meal plan, and her unpaid internships at important firms. Gavin, she texted me one night. Can you Venmo me $50? I went over my budget this month, and I don't want Dad to get mad. I was on the bus on my way to campus. I sent it. She never paid me back. The second year of college, I almost dropped out. I was burnt out. I was sleeping 4 hours a night. I failed 2 classes because I literally fell asleep on my keyboard. When I told my mother, she took the opportunity to finish me off. See, this is what we were afraid of. Not everyone is cut out for studying. Your sister, on the other hand, is doing great. She got an A in accounting. That hurt more than the failing grades. Things got murkier when I started teaching myself programming outside of the university. Free online courses, tutorials, small projects. For the first time, I felt I was good at something really good. A professor recommended me for an internship at a small tech startup. It didn't pay much, but it was more than the grocery store, and it was in my field. I told my parents at dinner, almost excited. I got an internship as a programmer. It's less money at first, but there could be a full-time offer later. My father frowned. And the grocery store? I'm quitting. I can't do both. My mother let out a short laugh. You're going to leave a steady job for an internship? Gavin, please. It's in my field, Mom. It's real experience. Real experience is paying bills, he retorted, not playing on the computer. In the end, I did the internship anyway. I cut my expenses even more. I stopped going out, stopped buying clothes. I spent a year in the same ripped jeans. But that year changed my life. The startup began to grow. They offered me a remote contract with a decent salary. By 23, I was earning more than my father. They didn't know that. To them, I was still the one trying things out. And yet, they kept asking me for money. Gavin, can you cover the car insurance this month? My father would text. Gavin, the bank went crazy with the mortgage payment. We're a little short. Gavin, your sister needs a new laptop. Hers is too slow for her coursework. I said yes out of inertia, with swallowed rage. I justified it to myself. They're my family. Someday they'll appreciate it. The breaking point came with something I didn't expect, an email from a private lender. Dear Gavin, we are processing your application for a student loan. My blood ran cold. I hadn't applied for any loan. I called the lender the next day, trembling. They confirmed the details of the application, my personal information, my social security number, my address, and a digital signature that looked a lot like mine. But it wasn't. It's for a master's in financial management, the representative explained. The beneficiary is listed as Elena Johnson. Elena, my sister. I hung up the phone with a knot in my throat and the certainty that someone in my house had decided my name was also good for collateral. That night, when I got home, I threw my keys on the table. Does anyone want to explain to me why there's a student loan application in my name for Elena's graduate program? I asked, straight to the point. My mother tensed up. My father avoided my gaze. Elena froze with her phone in her hand. Oh, Gavin, don't be so dramatic, my mother began. It's just a formality. You have a good income. It gives the bank more security. It's fraud, I replied. It's identity theft. You used my information without my permission. It's for your sister, my father snapped, raising his voice. She's the one who's going to lift this family up. Don't be so resentful. That sentence broke something inside me. The next day, I contacted the lender and formally withdrew the application. I filed a fraud report, stating that the application was made without my knowledge or consent, though I didn't name my family to the police. My hands were shaking, but I did it. At home, there was shouting, slamming doors, "You're hurting me" from my mother, and a "you're just jealous of your sister" from Elena. That was the day I stopped telling them how much I earned. I saved my money, kept working, and kept studying, but I began to distance myself, little by little. The funny thing is, fate has a dark sense of humor. 4 years later, Elena and I would be wearing the same gown at the same university. Except they had paid for her tuition. I had paid for mine. Every last cent. For years after that, she has potential. You don't. There we were, the four of us on a campus again, my parents, my sister, and me. Only this time, the campus wasn't Elena's private one, but the state university where I had completed my master's in data science, sponsored by my company. Elena, after finishing her business degree, had completed a post-baccalaureate certificate program, and by sheer coincidence, our graduation ceremonies were on the same day, at the same time, in the same building. My mother was euphoric. Both my children graduating on the same day, she repeated to anyone who would listen. What a proud day, Robert. Look at our family. I looked at her and thought, you don't even know how much you paid for my degree. 0. We arrived at the auditorium. My parents sat in the middle row with Elena glued to my mother's side. I sat with the rest of the graduates, in my black cap and gown, feeling awkward. Before it started, my mother came over to me and adjusted the collar of my gown as if I were still 10 years old. Gavin, smile, okay? Today is a happy day, not a day for that long face. I bit my tongue. I didn't want to ruin my own day. The ceremony began. They called the business certificate graduates first, then another department, then the master's students. The names rang out one after another. Elena Johnson. Applause. My parents stood up, clapping loudly. My mother shouted, "That's my girl." Elena went on stage, collected her certificate, and posed for the photo without looking in my direction. Then it was my turn. Gavin Johnson, recipient of the Award for Academic Excellence in the Master of Data Science program, and recipient of the Research Fellowship awarded by our corporate partner. A small murmur went through the room. I froze for a second. Academic excellence? I knew I was doing well, but not that well. The program director winked at me. I walked onto the stage. They handed me not just the diploma, but an additional folder. The presenter explained cheerfully into the microphone. Gavin has already been hired by an international tech company with headquarters in Berlin. He's leaving with a permanent contract and a more than respectable salary. An example of effort and merit. People applauded. I searched for my parents in the crowd. I saw my mother with her mouth agape, as if she'd swallowed a fly. I saw my father frowning, trying to process what he'd heard. I saw Elena staring off to the side, rigid. When I came down from the stage, the director clapped me on the back. You've earned it, Gavin. Come back sometime and give a talk to the new students. Of course, I replied, still in shock. After the ceremony, we gathered outside on the lawn. My great aunt, who didn't even really know what a master's degree was the first to speak. You're going to Germany, son? How incredible. Now that's what I call having a future. My mother snapped into action. She grabbed my arm and pulled me aside. Her hand was shaking slightly. Germany, she whispered. Since when? Why didn't you tell us anything? For months now, I said, tired. I told you I had a good remote job. The company offered me a transfer. I start in 2 months. My father joined our huddle, his face serious. And you're just planning to leave? Just like that? What about us? What about your sister? And there it was. It wasn't emotional concern, it was financial panic. My mother squeezed my arm tighter. Gavin, we need to talk, seriously. Don't make impulsive decisions. Now that you're finally earning good money, it makes no sense for you to go off somewhere. You can help out at home here. You can invest in the house, in the family. Now that you're finally earning good money, as if I had just been playing around before. I took a deep breath. I've been helping at home since I was 18, I replied. I've paid bills, repairs, groceries, Elena's books, phones, meals. All while you were telling me I had no potential. My father raised his voice. Don't start with the reproaches on your graduation day, Gavin. We've always done the best we could for you both. If Elena got more, it's because she earned it. I laughed, but without humor. She earned it? Was committing loan fraud in my name for her master's also something she earned? My mother's face turned red. Lower your voice. Don't make a scene. You're the ones who caused a serious situation with the lender, I retorted. A strange silence fell. People were walking by, families taking pictures, laughter, flashes, and the 4 of us stuck in the middle. My mother then whispered, so quietly I almost didn't hear it, but I saw her eyes well up. She looked at my father, grabbed his arm, and said, Robert, what have we done? For the first time in my life, I felt like they realized something. At least for a second. It didn't last long. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. What we've done is raised 2 children, he said defensively. And now one of them wants to abandon us when we need him most. That's when I exploded. I'm not abandoning you, I said. I'm setting boundaries. I paid for my own degree, my own master's, my own expenses. You decided to invest in Elena. Fine. So let that investment pay off now. I looked at my sister. For the first time, she didn't look away. What's that supposed to mean? She asked defensively. That you're not going to help at all now? That you're just going to leave us high and dry? It means, I replied, that I am not your bank. My salary is not an extension of your checking account. And if I go to Berlin, the money I earn will be for my life, not to patch up your financial holes. My mother clutched her chest. You've become so selfish, son. Yes, we bet on your sister, but we never left you without a roof over your head or food on the table. A bitter laugh escaped me. You didn't pay a single dollar of my tuition. You told me to my face that I had no potential, that I was better off staying at the grocery store. And now that it turns out I did have it, you want to manage what I earn. Don't talk to your mother like that. My father jumped in. As long as you live under this roof. I'm not going to live under this roof. I cut him off. I'm leaving. And this time, I'm setting the terms. It was the first time I had said it out loud. It was the exact moment I stopped feeling small in front of them. The next 2 months were a strange mix of freedom and guilt. On one hand, I was excited. I signed the contract with the company in Berlin, found a shared apartment, started online German classes, and sold things I wasn't going to take with me. On the other hand, the atmosphere at home was a cold war. My mother barely spoke to me, leaving my plate on the table without looking at me. If I entered the living room, she would leave. My father only opened his mouth to throw passive-aggressive comments my way. Remember, when we pass away, I don't want anyone showing up saying, I had no idea. Then people complain about being lonely when they're old. But of course, if you've raised children who leave at the first opportunity. Elena played a curious role. At first, she was angry with me. You think you're better than everyone because you're moving abroad, she told me one night in the hallway. There are opportunities here too, you know. That's not it, I replied. I just want to stop being everyone's personal ATM. No one's forcing you, she retorted. I looked her straight in the eye. No? Then who kept asking me to Venmo the money until Dad got paid? Who let our parents try to put a loan in my name for your degree? She didn't answer. She left, slamming her door. The financial pressure arrived in the form of text messages. One afternoon, while I was reviewing a packing list, my father texted me, something he rarely did. Dad, we've been looking at the accounts. Dad, how much will you be able to send us each month from Germany? Dad, so we can organize the budget. I stared at my phone, my stomach churning. Before, if he had asked me that, I would have said whatever I can and then adjusted my life around the leftovers. Not this time. Me. Nothing on a regular basis. Me. If I ever want to help with something specific, I will. But I am not going to take on your monthly expenses. It took him a while to reply. Dad, I don't understand. Dad, what about all the help we've given you? Dad, this isn't fair. I took a deep breath before typing. Me, what help exactly? Me, I paid for my tuition. Me, I paid for my college laptop. Me, I paid for my bus pass. Me, I've been paying bills and household expenses since I was 18. Me, I have bank statements for everything. Me, I don't owe you money, and I certainly don't owe you my future. I read the message 3 times before hitting send. I knew once it was out there was no going back. He didn't respond. 10 minutes later, my mother called. What is this about you not sending anything? She started without a greeting. Have you gone crazy? Your father is beside himself. Mom, I said, I'm 26 years old. I'm moving to another country. I have to build my own life, pay rent, health insurance, everything. I can't be responsible for a mortgage that isn't mine or for expenses you've generated. But the mortgage is for your home, she shouted. You've always lived here. The least you could do is help. I have helped, I replied. Too much. And it's never been enough. I want this to stop. There was a silence filled with heavy breathing. I never thought you would turn out like this, she finally said, her voice thick with emotion. We gave you everything. We could have left your sister with nothing too. And look, we bet on her so that you wouldn't have to carry your parents when they got old. That sentence left me stunned. You bet on her so that I wouldn't have to carry you when you're old? I repeated. So the idea was for her to support you, and I was. What? Plan B. Of course, she snapped. She has the head for it. You were never very ambitious. I hung up before I said something I would regret. From that point on, communication dwindled to a minimum. I sent them my flight information. I told them the exact day I was leaving. There was no farewell dinner, no emotional hug, only curt comments. The day I packed my bags, I brought the last box down to the living room. My father was sitting there watching TV, the volume high. My mother was in the kitchen, Elena in her room. I'm leaving, I said, setting the box by the door. My father didn't even turn his head. Close the door tight on your way out, he mumbled. I went up to say goodbye to Elena. She was on her bed, looking at her phone. Well, I said, I'm off. She looked at me seriously. I hope you don't regret this, she said. Mom is devastated. Mom is devastated because her calculator broke. I replied, harsher than I intended. Not because I'm leaving. Elena pressed her lips together. You've always played the victim, Gavin. I took a good look at her one last time. No, I said. I made myself responsible for my studies, my money, and your bills. Now, I'm just making myself free. I left the house I had lived in my whole life with a backpack and 2 suitcases, the same number of items I had when I started college. Only now, I carried a contract and a very clear boundary in my mind. In Berlin, everything was different. The cold, the language, the people. But also the feeling of coming home to an apartment where no one yelled, "How much did you get paid this month?" The feeling of receiving my paycheck and being able to decide what to do with it, guilt-free. The first time I received my full salary, I sat at the table in my shared living room with my laptop and opened the banking app. For a few minutes, I did nothing but look at the number. I thought of all the transfers to mom and dad I had made since I was 18. I thought of every payment to Elena. I closed my eyes and breathed. Then I did something very simple. I created a savings account named Gavin's Future, and I moved a good percentage of my salary into it, without remorse. My parents' calls became rarer and more aggressive. You're leaving us high and dry, my mother would say. Your sister can't find a job in her field. Could you help her with her rent? My father would insist. That's what family is for. I repeated variations of the same sentence. I will not finance the consequences of decisions I did not make. After a few months, they stopped calling as often. Instead, uncles, cousins, and even the next-door neighbor started calling. Your mother is doing very poorly, son. You could be more flexible. Your father has a tax issue. You, now that you're earning the big bucks, could lend a hand. Your sister had to move back home, poor thing. And you're out there traveling. Yes, I was traveling, for the first time in my life. I could afford to go to another city for a weekend, to eat without looking at the price column before the food column. But it wasn't just the money. It was the inner silence, The mental space that opens up when you stop constantly calculating if you have enough for everyone else but you. What I didn't expect was the call from Elena. A year later, my phone rang on a Tuesday night. An American number. I thought it was a telemarketer. I answered without looking closely. "Hey, it's me," said the voice. It was Elena. I was quiet for a few seconds. We hadn't really talked in months. "Hi," I finally replied. There was a long sigh on the other end. "I don't really know where to start," she said. "Mom is not doing well. Nothing serious, but she's having anxiety attacks. The doctor says it's stress." "I'm sorry to hear that," I answered sincerely. "Is she okay now?" "More or less," but she hesitated. "They had to refinance the mortgage, and Dad's tax issue is more complicated than we thought. He's working extra hours, but it's not enough." I waited. I knew what was coming. "I'm not calling to ask for money," she added quickly. "Well, not exactly." I smiled without joy. "Just say what you have to say, Elena." "I just wanted you to know that this has all blown up," she said, her voice breaking. "And you were right. Mom and Dad were counting on one of us to save them from disaster. First they thought it would be me, and now they're resentful of you because you're not doing it." There was a pause. "And you?" I asked. "What do you think?" "I think I was selfish," she said bluntly. "It was very convenient for me to have everything paid for and to look the other way while they squeezed you dry. I believed the hype that I had more potential than you, and now I'm back at home with a terrible temporary contract, listening to Dad say how he wishes Gavin were more grateful. That hurt more than any insult." "It's not all your fault," I said. "We were 18. They were the adults." She laughed bitterly. "But I asked you for money without thinking, too. And I stayed quiet about the loan situation. I could have said something. I didn't. I didn't know what to say. I'm calling because," she continued, "I'm thinking of leaving. Leaving home, leaving the city, maybe the country. And I know no one is going to support me. They'll call me a traitor, selfish. Everything they've said to you, they'll say to me." I nodded. "They always say that when the ATM gets disconnected." I heard a choked sob. "How did you do it?" she asked. "How do you handle the guilt?" I thought for a moment. I looked around my small apartment in Berlin, at my desk, the plant I almost always forget to water, the photo with my work friend stuck to the fridge. "The guilt doesn't go away," I answered. "You just learn to look it in the eye and ask it, am I really the bad guy for not letting myself be exploited my whole life?" And most days, the answer is no. "Gavin," she said, her voice trembling, "Mom says you've changed, that you're not the same, that you're cold." "I have changed," I admitted. "I used to say yes to everything and then hate myself. Now I say no to almost everything that hurts me, and I endure the disappointed looks from others." There was a softer silence. "Do you think they'll ever forgive you?" she asked. I shrugged, though she couldn't see it. "I don't know," I said. "What I do know is that I don't have to forgive myself for anything for stopping being their retirement plan. I did what I had to do to keep from sinking with them." Elena took a deep breath. "I wanted you to know," she said, "that even though it's late, I see what happened. And I admire you for having the courage I didn't have." That phrase made my throat tighten. "I don't need you to admire me," I replied. "I just want that if you decide to leave, you do it for you, not to prove anything to me or to them. And that you understand you don't have to sacrifice your entire life for a family is everything motto that only works in one direction. And if they call you one day when things are worse," she insisted, "are you going to help them?" I didn't answer immediately. I really thought about it, without anger or resentment. "If they ever have an urgent medical need and I can help, I will," I finally said. "I don't wish them ill, but I'm not going to pay their debts or their whims or for their lack of planning. I will not make my own effort my punishment. Mom would say that shows a lack of heart." I smiled wearily. Mom confuses a heart with a credit card. Elena laughed for the first time. "Thanks for answering," she whispered. "I thought you'd tell me to get lost." "There was a time I would have," I admitted. "Now, I'm just trying to live in peace. And talking to my sister doesn't take away my peace." We hung up with a strange kind of peace, sad, but honest. That night, I found myself looking at the banking app again, but not to make transfers, just to see my own numbers, my own plans. I thought about that living room where they told me I had no potential. I thought about my mother whispering, "Robert, what have we done?" as they announced me as the top student. And I understood something that took me years to see. My value was never in how much money I could give them, nor in whether they thought my career was serious, nor in whether I stayed close by to fix their lives. My value was in having kept going when no one bet on me, in having paid my own way when all the resources went somewhere else, in having had the courage to say enough, even when they called me selfish. Today, when someone tells me, family comes first, I always ask the same thing. For them too, or just for you? Because I learned the hard way that we're family, without respect, without boundaries, and without accountability, just means I can use your life and your money without consequences. I don't play that game anymore. I'm not the perfect son. I'm not anyone's hero. I'm just the guy they told had no potential, who decided, for the first time, to use that supposed potential to save himself, not the people who were drowning him. And honestly, I don't need any other approval than that. Comment. It can be incredibly challenging when the people who are supposed to believe in you the most don't see your true worth. Learning to see and honor your own potential is the first step toward building a life you deserve. Setting healthy boundaries isn't an act of selfishness. It is an act of profound self-respect. True kindness includes being kind to yourself, which sometimes means disappointing others to stay true to your path. You are responsible for your own happiness and future, and you are not responsible for the consequences of other people's choices. This journey of healing and reclaiming your life isn't always easy, but it is necessary. Sometimes you have to choose your peace over proving a point or winning an argument. The labels others place on you do not have to become your reality. I hope this reminds you to invest in yourself, because you are always your most important asset. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.